lost Mr. Fezziwig and his fiancée, but he chose to turn his back on it and remain in his depression. So then the Ghost of Christmas Present showed up, and the Ghost of Christmas Present showed up as abundance. He walked into a room full of light, and everything that could nurture the soul, the foods and gifts and everything you could possibly imagine, and the light. So Ebenezer was then taken on an opportunity to show that in people's homes and in people's boats and wherever else the Christmas took him, that he was shown that there was people, even though they had very little, were able to find gratitude in the things that they had. In the Cratchit's home, he had his children, and the love in that home was great, even though the goose was small. And even Tiny Tim, what a blessing that Tiny Tim was, that in his crippled state, he was able to see that he hoped that when people saw his crippled state, that he would be able to inspire them to remember Jesus, that Jesus loved us enough to help the lame to walk and the blind to see. So at this particular point in time, Ebenezer's heart begins to crack and his heart chakra begins to open. But then there is left with Christmas Future, and Christmas Future shows him without a shadow of a doubt what is going to happen if his life does not change. First of all, Tiny Tim will not make it without medical help, but also that he's left in a cold grave without anybody even giving a rip, because he was mostly dead anyway, and he wasn't expressing life. The other thing is that he was also able in Christmas Present to hear his nephew have compassion for him. How sad it was that his nephew said that his uncle was so miserable and yet had such fantastic wealth to which he could make himself useful to the world, and chose not to do that. So by seeing his past, present, and future, by able to step out and look at himself objectively, he was able to move forward into a different kind of being. He took on the light, he became enlightened into his Christ consciousness. And I think from my particular story, I am sharing this with you, putting this together for you has made me see that story in a completely different way, which I'm grateful for. Many of us don't see through our conditioning, but we're still driven by it. Curiously enough, in the light that shall set you free, I found a definition for Christ consciousness doing research for this. And it says it is one of the early stages of spiritual evolution. Early stages of spiritual evolution. So I thought, wow, you can't rearrange the room until you turn on the light. So when they talk about us moving from the dark into the light, the Christ consciousness is who we are. And as long as we deny our Christ consciousness, we're bumping into the walls and we're tripping over stuff that we can't see. And that's why I think that we all come together to share with each other this, to help us all remember who we are. Because of our past conditioning, many of us don't realize it, or we think we're like Ebenezer, and that we still think that we are unlovable. We still think that we're imperfect. We still think that if I was just thinner or smarter or wealthier or whatever, I could be more acceptable. I could be more loving. The thing is that Eckhart Tolle has told us there is only now. Everything that you are, everything that is possible is now, is not in the future. So the key to tapping the wonders of of your power and happiness lies in your ability to open your mind to the possibilities that are around you. A person with Christ consciousness walks around and looks at others knowing that it's like, hey, you're Christ with me. That we walk with Jesus and all of the other beings on this planet, regardless of color, race, creed, religion, that it's all God. Yesterday I was talking with a client upstairs and she says, I've been taking classes from Emerson, and she says, and I still can't wrap my head around the fact that it's my idea, my judgment, that sugar is bad for me. I said, yes, I understand. That's a tough one. Because we have good and bad foods, right? This is the planet of yin and yang. But I said, but the thing is that if you ponder that, there will be a day when you can see that there is nothing but God. It might take us a while, but I believe that with all my heart. It is those things within me, those exercises, those challenges that make me a human being that also delight me. And if I can keep my sense of humor about myself, I can get through it much, much easier, and then the burden is lifted to some degree. We all have our challenges that we're trying to overcome, but it's a promise that you will, if you want to. New Earth from Eckhart says that life will give you whatever experience that is most helpful to your evolution of consciousness. How do you know it's the experience you need? Because that's what we're having. So finally, from the Mind of Christ, James Marion, I wish I was this eloquent, perhaps someday. I couldn't have said this any more beautifully. He says, finally, we should remind ourselves daily of who we are. We are already perfect in God's eyes. We are already God's beloved sons and daughters, Romans 8:16. We are already sinless, 1 John 3:7, which means that we are already, there's no mistake there. We are already heirs with Jesus in the kingdom, Romans 8:17. Our essence is love, 1 John 4. We are already saved, 1 John 2. We're already immortal, 1 Corinthians 15. The spiritual path is not designed to get any of these things for us, because in truth, we don't lack any of those things now. It's merely to help us gradually become conscious of who we already are, to make ourselves more perfect vehicles for the manifestations of love of God on earth. I pray we all become perfect vehicles for expressing God's love, so that through us the kingdom of heaven will come on earth as it already is in heaven. For us to come together, for us to think on and meditate and pray about the Christ consciousness within us that is our destiny, that Jesus promised to us all those years ago that we walk with that kind of consciousness within us once we put our egos and our judgments down and try to, if we're in a negative state of mind, know that this too shall pass and that there is greater enlightenment if we would just take a moment to breathe deeply and pray about it and hold that energy that is ours. That we can, in fact, have Christ consciousness within us and look upon each other in a much more loving way. And so, therefore, healing is